Hi everyone, welcome back. Thanks for joining me. I need the company today. It's another lovely morning here in Red Wharf Bay and the sun is shining and the air's just started moving. So let's have a little look at what the weather's got in store for us today for going home with. The plan's to depart when we float really, which I think is going to be somewhere around here at 10 o'clock. The wind's set to be about 14 knots, pushing up to 25 with the gusts. Well, I should be able to push my way out against that quite easy. And it's promising a lovely sunny day. Well, that's a little bit strange. That's about the top of the gusts that we were promised, saying about 25 knots. And we've just had 25 to 29 knots. So it certainly is gusting a bit. Well, the wind's coming from a different direction that it's supposed to be. It's coming from over there, which is northeast more or less. Right, we want southeast down there, which it's supposed to be coming in that way. It's not coming straight in our entrance. Well, it's still got time to veer, so we'll let it settle itself down a bit. Wind's dropped down a lot now, which is better. The wind's blowing in at a northeasterly at the moment. It says easterly, but it says when I was looking yesterday it was southeasterly and I was happy with southeasterly. Northeasterly I'm not happy with. It's going to be a little bit rough on the bar, I think, just getting out. And as we're going by our course that we plotted, watching it on the GPS instead of a buoyed area, I'll have to use twice the amount of concentration, so I think I'll just motor on down to Puffin Island and go into the Straits, where I think there'll be a little bit more protection and a bit more of favourable wind. It's probably me. Probably some weird thing I've got going on. But I find it mesmerising when I watch the water come in, and it comes in at this pace. You can actually see it running along the ground. Little rivers fill it in as they go, not just tiny little ones, but moving fast. It's actually grown. You watch it cover the ground. From the left hand side of the screen here to the right hand side of the screen, it takes literally seconds to travel it, and that's about 3 meters. So imagine getting cut off quickly by it. It doesn't half move at a pace. There you go, right across the screen, every little bit. Getting damp now. We'll be using our waypoints to get us out, and the water's started coming in there. You can see it quite clearly, getting closer. If you look out to the far end of the bar, all the way over there, you can see there's a little bit of surf building up on the bar edge itself. But where there's a bit more water, over here, where the deep section is, there doesn't seem to be many breaking waves, so I hope it stays like that when we get there. Well, I've just passed the buoys and put the phone on. It's a little bit lumpy just here going out. I think the water's just come over the bank, and what was breaking on the bank has now got over to the deep section where I come in and go out. I do think to myself, while it's bumpy like this, I just want to get to deeper water quickly. In the back of my mind, I sort of know I'm committed as well, because I ain't going back to pick that mooring up. This swell hitting the mooring buoys would make it extremely difficult to grab hold of one, and the other side of that is you're ready to be blown onto the shore should you miss it. So I don't fancy either of those sides of it. So let's get out to sea and get round that headland and get into the Menai Straits where it's nice and calm. Not that you noticed, but the wind strength's just picked up a lot, and the boat started heeling a little bit with no sails up. The gust seems to be much stronger than I'm supposed to be getting at the moment. I'm in the channel now, so I need to stay quite aware of where I am to port and starboard, and waves that are starting to get up like this, they could knock you off track quite easily, especially now. Like, I'm getting a good gust now and it's pushing me over a bit, and it could push me to port quite easily, so I need to stay on top of that. I do know it's supposed to be quite difficult to get out of Red Wharf Bay if there's any easterly with any strength in it, and the Met Office forecast today was for 3 to 5, possibly 6, which sort of agreed with the windy forecast that I looked at earlier, although we were supposed to only get up to the maximum of 25 knots at the moment on that. it did show 35 knots for later on in the day, so I think we're getting a bit of that through now, which is just unfortunate really, but I need to get out. It's really hard to tell how big the waves are on a camera, but that one I've just gone over is probably about 3/4 of a metre, and they're averaging between half a metre and just over a metre at this moment in time. The land you can see on the left of the screen there, the headland, well, when I reach the end of that land there, the water starts opening up and the sandbar starts disappearing and I can get out to sea, and hopefully all this will just flatten out then and all the wind will go away and it'll just be local wind in this channel. The wind on the bar though does seem to be making a heavy swell here, so people are right when they turn around and say you don't want to go in or out of here on an easterly. I'm very aware at the moment that I've got to go close to the shore as well, and if the engine cuts out it wouldn't be long before I was on that beach. Not a good place to be, not a good position to put yourself in, but it wasn't like this when I left the mooring. This just seems to be getting worse and worse as I'm going out, and I'm definitely committed now, so I want to make the end of land there. Although I have got an action plan in mind, should the engine cut out for any reason, I'm going to turn the boat and run back down the channel where I've come from. May have to put a little bit of foresail up, and then when I get into an open section I can drop the anchor, and that's the reverse plan. It's always good to have a backup plan. Better than the beach anyway, I'm sure. Well, let's hope as I get a bit further out the wind dies down a little bit and the sea flattens out a little bit, and then we can get on with the rest of our day. Although I'm keeping a good eye on the waypoints on my little phone in front of me and making sure I stay on course, I do realise that my speed changes quite quickly when these waves hit now. Some of them are passing a metre now and they start slowing you down a lot when they get to that size. So when I slow I then drift to port with the wind until she sort of picks up a little bit again. And I've been watching the surf building up on the beach as well, and I think to myself, don't want to get over there at any cost. Yeah, over there, don't want to be there. I just glanced inside as well on that last wave and I had a look and I could see my wind speed, and it's in the 30s now. That's probably the reason that this swell's starting to get bigger as well. They're starting to average out at a metre, these waves now. I'm bashing my way through them. Well, it was forecast for 35 knots this afternoon. I suppose it's just arrived really early. It was strange the way it arrived though, because less than an hour ago there were no wind whatsoever. So it seems to have built up really quickly. Well, I'm not 100% sure how that's come about, and to tell you the truth I haven't been watching the barometer this morning, but I did notice yesterday when it wasn't very windy, when the weather was light, that the barometer climbed up quite quickly, and that would have indicated wind. It just seems now, some of these waves are getting up to 1.5 meters now, it just seems now that it's late for that, for some strange reason. But there you go, something's definitely driving this wind force, unless there's a man round the corner with a great big propeller having a laugh. Well, I'm not even out the way in yet. You can still see land on my port side there, and this is a really big swell for the entrance, and it probably is because I'm stuck in the entrance. It's probably coming over the end of the bar and bouncing. Well, hopefully something like that anyway. You can see the colour of the water. Although it's green, it's got a sandy colour to it as well, and I think that's because it's hitting the bar so hard it's picking a lot of sand up. So what I need to look for to see where the end of the bar is where the water changes from the colour it is now and goes a bit bluey, so it's not obviously lifting loads of sand, and that should be where it evens out a little bit with a little bit of luck. I'm also finding that these waves are very close together, like they would be on a wind over tide situation, but I haven't got a wind over tide situation. I think it's more likely because they've built up so quickly they haven't had chance to manufacture the fetch within themselves. Now the wind at this point has just howled. The gust was quite strong, right into the 40s, and it almost stopped me dead with the wave it pushed into me. Well, the boat's still got a bit of way on and it will pick back up again, I hope, and I'll get out of here. Now I am definitely getting further and further down the channel, so that's a good thing, but it's a little bit difficult to see the change in water ahead of me at the moment, where it runs from the sandy water of the bar to the green coloured water of the deep water section, which will hopefully be coming sooner rather than later, because this is getting bumpier and bumpier, which one would expect as you're getting sort of towards the edge of the bar where it's all starting from. The waves don't look too bad on the camera when you play them back, but when you're here you can actually feel the power in them. 1.5 meters of water can stop the boat almost dead in the spot. Swallow's quite good though. She's got quite a heavy weight to her, and it allows her to carry on pushing, or just to keep a little bit of way on, so that you don't lose steerage, because losing steerage can put your beam onto the next wave, which is probably not too good for you. On the plus side, however, no water's coming in the boat, not even a splash. That's probably the benefit of the wheelhouse. Takes a lot of the brunt of any waves that get thrown over, but she's riding most of them, because as you've seen her when she's out the water, she's got a lovely big bow on her, which helps her get through these waves. Now the reason I've stood up is probably because I'm a little bit more concerned about what's coming. Some of them now are hitting in at 2 meters, and they seem to be quite powerful. I know when I look at them on the screen, I say to myself, well, they just don't look it now, but there's a lot of power in this water now, and the wind is staying in the 40s for some reason. And we haven't left the bar yet. I'm still aware that there's land on my port side, so I'm sort of on the edge of thinking to myself, I need to stay right on top of this, stay right in this deep spot as I'm going out, and I've got no sort of emergency time. If I have a problem, I've got to turn round immediately and head back the way I was coming, because that beach will come on me so quickly with 40 knots of wind on the side of the boat. When I was setting off, I was almost convinced that the wind strength was just puffing in gusts, but it's not puffing in gusts anymore. It's just building up and building up, and the sea's starting to build up with it, and it's building up quickly as well, with sort of no time to sort yourself out and get ready for change. I haven't even clipped on at this point, and that's in my mind. I have got my jacket on underneath my blue coat, but that's not enough. I would feel a lot more comfortable in this size sea now to be clipped on. Right, we've cleared the end of the channel and the sea's quite big, so I've put the auto helm on to see if that can cope. If it can keep the boat in a steady direction, it'll give me a bit of time to make some choices of what I should be doing at this moment in time. I take stock and have a look around and think to myself, it doesn't seem like it's going to calm down, so I need to take some precautions, especially as the sea seems to be still growing. On the plus side, as we're getting a bit further out, the fetch has started opening up a little bit. I don't know whether the fetch has started opening up because the water's got a bit deeper, or because it's just been blowing a bit longer out here. But this is my first precaution that I need to do. I need to get a washboard in, because when the water gets really lumpy, the chances of taking a cockpit full are very increased, and you want to make sure that it's going out and not staying in the boat. When I first started and I'd left the mooring and I was on my way out and the wind got up, I was convinced it was a local wind, because Red Wharf Bay does suffer a lot of local winds, and I was convinced when I got out here the wind would drop down, but it's picking up further and further now, and it's well climbed into the 40s and it's getting a good grip out here. So I'm not sure what decisions I'm going to make, but I'll be rethinking in a minute. Look at me doing a bit of camera work, just a lunatic I'm sure. At this point here I should be getting my harness and clipping myself on, not playing around with the camera. And I'm recording the speed there of the wind, which I'll show you later. I'm lucky though, because Swallow remains comfortable even when the water throws around a little bit. She seems to be able to absorb it quite happily and remain with a comfortable motion. This next wave that comes up, this one here, I go over it and down into a trough, and the wave that picks me up there picks me up about 3 meters. So she's still growing, the sea's growing continuously, the wind doesn't seem to be wanting to let off at all, So it's only going to get worse if I'm going into it. That's if it keeps blowing, that is. If you look ahead of me now, you can see the coloured water, the sandy coloured water. I know there's raindrops on the camera, but if you see the sandy coloured water, you can see it failing away. You can see the water just turning to green. Well, that's the deep section. That's me got out of harm's way, danger's way, if you like, and I'm out at sea. I feel comfortable once I get there. You can just see it coming now in front of me. It's definitely a change in colour. And if you notice, it actually looks a bit flatter there, and it also looks like this fetch has grown massively, which should bring the wave size and the force down a bit again, and that should make it a little bit more copeable. That's not to say that I don't feel Swallow's coping at the moment. She is coping, and she's coping very well, and as you can see, she remains a good stable platform while the sea's having a little hissy fit. It's comfortable enough for me to go inside the wheelhouse and do a little bit of chart work and a little bit of thinking, to think what I should do as use a backup plan now, because I'm not too sure that I want to continue in this with these size waves hitting me all the time, all the way to Puffin Island, especially as now I've realised that I'm not going in the direction that I'm pointing. I'm actually making my way off to port. So I've got that to consider. I'm not really going to get to where I want to go. I will try a little bit harder, but if I can't get there, I'm going to have to make another plan, and that's what I'm doing now, looking at my options. One of the things I do know is that the flood is still on a little bit out here. I mean, it's the last hour of the flood, but that means that this wind is going over the tide a little bit, and that's probably why there are a lot of wind here. The fetch seems to be quite close together and makes it very hard to turn into. So my thought there is, if I can ride it a little bit, this might flatten down as the top of tide appears, and it might even flatten down a little bit more in say an hour and a half, when the actual water starts to move along with the wind, which will both be against us. I don't know whether that's a good idea to leave it till that point where the wind will be with the tide against us. Although it might be a bit flatter, it still might be too much for me to handle, because you can get an easy knot here against you, and I'm not making good headway now because of the amount of wind. And as I've already explained, what headway I am making at the moment is actually to port. So I've not got any chosen direction on the go at the moment. I did think about turning around and running, and my little worry about turning around and running at the moment in time, although that I think it's the sensible decision, is I'll be able to use sail, but I'd be running towards land because Red Wharf Bay's tucked in quite a lot. So I've got to get out a lot further so that I'd be running towards open water, and that's what I'd prefer. So I'll stick on trying to get out a little bit, or trying to get in my chosen direction. No, I'm getting out a little bit because the boat's moving to port, which is taking me further out to sea. And what I think I'll try and do then is I might have to hand steer for a bit, or I'll see if the nautical helm can cope. I'll see if I can point it towards that hill in the distance, that one there. This next trough's at least 3 meters deep. That'll definitely take some way off. It seemed to stop me dead, and it's knocked me off now. I don't know whether I can make any headway into a sea that size. I know they're not all that big, but you'll need one, and then you've got the recovery, and the boat's got to get its bow back round again, and the boat gets its bow back round again, and the next big wall comes along and stops you dead. Well, it might be a futile exercise, but I've got plenty of time, so I've got no worries. So I think I'll have to give it a go. The only reason I think I might be able to make some way directly into this bit of a storm is because, when it is a storm, it's blowing strong enough to be a storm, I'm quite sure. I think it's a little bit past a gale now. Yeah, the only reason I think I can make my way into it is because if I can get the bow to point directly at the wind, I think that's the smallest amount of windage I can present. So if I can still make some way as I'm going now, then I'll actually get somewhere. And of course I've still got the plan in my head that the tide's going to lower this fetch down as well. So let's give it a go, hand steer, and see if I can stay on that hill for a bit. See how much progress I get and how many knots I can make over the ground. I don't know why the GoPro on the back of the boat there doesn't pick any of the wind sounds up. The wind's proper howling here, and you can't hear it at all, and you'd have enjoyed the music. They call it a choir, but I'm not sure what sort of choir it is. But somebody will tell me. I'm sure they will. There, I've been knocked off by that last wave, and I'm trying to get my nose back on course. Well, this is what I was worried about. If you keep getting stopped, you're not going to get anywhere, because it's like 3 steps forward, 2 steps back, isn't it? It even looks like there's, after this little wave here, this one, it even looks like it gets a bit flatter there. So if it gets a bit flatter, maybe I'll be able to make a little bit more pace up. It's really funny because this is really enjoyable, because I know I've got my coat on, but it's fairly warm. It's about 12 degrees and the sun's shining, and that makes all the difference in the world when it gets bumpy out. Because if it's windy and bumpy out but it's got a grey sky on it, it feels completely different. It feels like, I don't know, like you shouldn't be out because the weather's not good. Well, this is me. Got out of Red Wharf Bay and I want to go that way. But there's not much chance of it, unfortunately, due to the fact that the wind is blowing this way. And he seems to have more puff, especially with the waves, than I have power, because the end result is I'm actually motoring that way, but I'm going this way. I'm only just going backwards, but I'm going backwards. So that's going to have to be the plan. I'm going to have to turn round and run. I'm going to head for this anchorage just here, which should be sheltered when I get there. Well, before you know it, I'm at the anchorage, and you'd think it was a different day. Almost, you'd think it were a different planet, let alone a different day. I've just come around from that corner where all hell was. It's that nice here. The local swimming group are out, having a lot of fun, enjoying the nice weather. Well, I think I've spoken too soon. The wind's followed me, it's catching up. It's going over the top of the hill and coming down the little bits of cliffs and dropping into the anchorage. Out at sea's starting to pick up a little bit as well. So I think it's changing direction maybe to get to where it's getting to now. There's a bit more north in it again, but it's certainly starting picking up again. Just when I thought I'd managed to give it the slip round here, I don't think I'll be comfortable to stay the night here anymore. Right, I think I'll move to the next safe haven along the coast. I'm here at the moment, and I want to get to here where I feel it's quite safe. But I've got to get through these overfalls in order to get there. We're in the middle of a big spring tide, and the wind's blowing in the high 30s. On the plus side, they're both going the same way as me.
Barry! Thanks very much, Barry! That's Barry's boat. Barry helped me in. Thank God for Barry, that's what I say. The weather out there is awful. I mean, really bad. I can't get anywhere. The boat was picked up and it was getting pushed along with its stern so high in the air. I've never seen a wave like that before. Well, there you go. They exist. and they tell me that it's only a 4.6 out there. Something's going wrong with the forecasting. Oh, we're in Amloch, and I think I need to fend her up.
Well, the trip over here, although it was only 1.5 miles and didn't last very long at all, was very eventful, and you'd love to have seen it. But there was no way, as soon as I got in those overfalls on a spring tide and gale force winds, that I was able to take my hands off the tiller. If you think water was rough earlier on, it was positively boiling then. I mean, I got here in one piece and I'm not complaining, and the boat probably would have done it all day. But no sooner had I pulled a bit of sail out and I had to put her away because I was here. And I'm sure I arrived by surfing, and thank God Barry was there to catch me lines when I got in. The entrance seems well protected and seems nice and calm, but that's not where you come from. You come from there, and that wasn't well protected, and it wasn't nice and calm either. However, I'm here now, and I'm well safe, so I don't have to worry about the water bouncing around out there, and I don't have to go back out until I'm ready. So let's enjoy it. Amloch itself is a beautiful little drying harbour at the top end, but stays wet at the bottom end where I am. Swallows down the far end down there, in one of the fishermen's pens. But I dare say you could have come up this far when the water was in and just dried out. When on land, it's an absolutely beautiful summer's day. And yet at the same time at sea, it's all hell. Two different worlds. Because of spring tides, the water comes right up to the top of the dock. I mean, it's as high as it can get really in here. It's a step down off the boat onto the dock. The breakwater just outside has a constant surf noise in your background all the time. This is going to be my second evening here, because I took a day off while I was here. I was going to go home tonight, but I thought it's such a lovely night. I'll open a can, and that way I won't. I'll go home in the morning. More sense. And it was lovely watching the sun go down while having a couple of tinnies. The temperature was still warmish and nice enough to sit outside and enjoy it. Wasn't long before night was here though. Temperature started plummeting, so I decided to give up with the beer, and I'll have a cup of tea before I go to bed, and I'll get up really early the next morning and set off at first light, I should imagine. Well, dawn comes with the sunlight, and it was a beautiful morning. Absolutely beautiful. Notice this video. Here's a still of it. And the reason I showed you the bit of video is nobody'd ever believed this photograph was undoctored. These were the colours, the real colours of the morning. Well, I'm glad you were along to enjoy these easterly winds with me and see how unpredictable they are. So I'm going to get home, but 2 days later than I thought I was. Till next time, bon voyage everyone.